One thing that I think has gone pretty well for Manchester United under Ruben Amorim is recruitment, getting rid of Deadwood and bringing the right kind of players in, whether that's down to Amorim, whether that's down to Ineos, whether that's a bit of both with the new structure. Manchester United, one thing they did was Anana and Højlund weren't going to go, and they went, fine, but we're going to sign your replacements anyway, so you can just stay and not play. And then Anana and Højlund finally left. Garnacho, Anthony, Rashford, Sancho, the bomb squad, all forced out. Manchester United have moved on a lot of players lately, and they need to continue that, and they need to be ruthless, because there's some players at Man United that don't have attitude issues, that aren't problems, but they're just not good enough. Højlund was moved on because he's not good enough. That was simply it. And we're looking at Delot, and we're looking at Ugarte and the interest in Ugarte, and this is what Man United need to do. They need to be ruthless. So we're going to break down all the latest Manchester United news. So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to your 10-minute Manchester United news roundup. We're going to talk about what Man United need to do, updates on Ugarte, his future, where he's viewed. We're going to speak about Delot and more. Do let me know your thoughts down below. Do let me know who you think Manchester United need to sell and more. So, where did I get this idea from? Well, there has been a little bit of talk around Ugarte and a potential exit, and I'm going to get into Ben Jacobs' comments today in a second. There was a possibility of Ugarte leaving Manchester United last summer, with the Italian clubs expressing interest in a loan deal, but United decided to keep Manuel Ugarte, was said by Romano. There was then reports not long ago that there was Galatasaray interest in Ugarte in January. Now, if someone is going to go in January, it feels like it's more likely to be Maino than Ugarte. Maino is pushing more for the loan. He wants the minutes more ahead of the World Cup. Ugarte is going to be in Uruguay's World Cup squad. Whatever happens, it's going to be really difficult for Maino to make the World Cup now. Now, Napoli have an injury in midfield. They want to go for Maino. Maino wants Napoli. We'll wait and see what happens there. I think if we get Conor Gallagher, we will let Maino go on loan. Do I like the idea of sending Maino off and bringing Conor Gallagher in? Not really. But I also want Maino to get minutes. We'll talk about that later on. But Manuel Ugarte is a player that I don't think is going to go anywhere in January unless we brought in a replacement, but that would mean Maino would have to stay. Obviously, he's not getting a load of minutes because of the Europa League, and he's not playing well. There's a big drop-off between Casemiro and him. But I do think Manuel Ugarte is one of those that if he's going to go, it's going to go in the summer. And I think he's going to be forced out in the same way that Højlund and Nana was forced out. Not necessarily you have to go, but we've signed your replacements. If you want minutes, you need to go. Now, there was clubs exploring him in the summer, and Man United weren't actively selling Ugarte in the summer, but we know from Romano, if a club had put in a 50 million bid for Ugarte and Ugarte said, I want to go to that club, United wouldn't have stopped it. And I think the fact that United wouldn't have stopped it says a lot. The fact that Ruben Amorim after the Europa League final shouted at Ugarte and said, you're not the same player you were Sporting, Man United are open to selling a guy. Ruben Amorim's not going to come out and say, yeah, I want to sell a guy, he's trash. But we know Ruben Amorim would say nice things about Højlund and Nana, but behind the scenes he wanted Højlund and Nana gone. We know that the same is potentially for Ugarte. But Ben Jacobs said something different, so I want to dive into what Ben Jacobs said. Manuel Ugarte's situation is pretty quiet at the moment, and Amorim continues to think the midfielder is a strong fit for a system. It's just the fact that he's not performing too well at the moment, and also one game a week is a factor, but I don't think there's an issue between the player and manager. So Ben Jacobs is saying he doesn't think there's an issue between the player and manager, and I don't think there's an issue between Ugarte and Amorim. I think Amorim is disappointed, and I think Amorim necessarily doesn't rate Ugarte like he used to, but I think it's like Højlund. Amorim never had an issue with Højlund, but we know that if Amorim get an upgrade on Højlund, he would. We're looking at Elliot Anderson for a reason. We want two midfielders for a reason. Amorim and Ugarte, there's no issue between them, but we want two midfielders this summer for a reason, midfield priority for a reason, because Ugarte's not that guy. I've seen glimpses of Ugarte. I thought he was quite good when Ruben Nistelrooy came in. I thought he was quite good in Amorim's first few months. He got injured. He struggled to get back in. We've seen glimpses. I think there's certain games where Ugarte is a very good player, and I do also think Ugarte needs to run games to find form. I think Ugarte is better than we give him credit for, but he's not the answer. And obviously, Ugarte's situation is quiet. There's a bit of interest there. He's not expected to go anywhere in January. He is seen as a strong fit for the system. He's not playing well. He's not playing a lot, but there's no issue there. But Man United want to upgrade on Ugarte. And that brings me into another player in Delot. We've had Delot at wing-back for a year, and he's not been good at wing-back for a year. He's not a wing-back. He's not a wing-back. He doesn't suit the system. Is Delot a bad player? No. Is he a decent player in a back four? Yes. But we play a back five. Delot in a back five does not work. Delot is a player that's a good age, it's on lower wages, that we can get a decent fee for, and we can bring in a proper left wing-back. Because Delot does not suit the system. Dalot does not suit the system. not just Ugarte. I look at Dalot, I look at Luke Shaw, and I say, would Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, their title-winning squads, be keeping these kind of players around if they had an opportunity to cash in on them? No. United need to be ruthless. They'll say, we like you, Ugarte, we like you, Dalot. Amorim loves Dalot, we know that. But United need to do what they did with Højlund and Onana. Not put them in the bomb squad, take them on pre-season tour, say good things about them, say Amorim says he likes them, but go and sign a wing-back. And go and sign 2 midfielders, and then say to Dalot, and then say to Ugarte, well, you're probably not going to play, so maybe you should look at other clubs. Because Højlund was adamant he was staying. Højlund was refusing to go. It wasn't until Højlund was just completely dropped from the squad and basically forced out by Amorim that he looked at other clubs. And Nana was adamant he was staying, and then we signed Le Mans, and then Nana effed off. I look at it and I just think, you know what? Ugarte, let's see what he does between now and the end of the season if he gets a run of games. But we send Dalot at wing-back for a year. He's had enough chances. He's not good enough at wing-back. And I like Dalot. I think he's a decent player, but at wing-back. And I think Man United need to be ruthless and say, Ugarte, Dalot, you can maybe look at Luke Shaw. You can say even Maguire. We're not going to extend your contract. We're going to bring someone else in. They need to be ruthless in the sense of get rid of them. Because Arsenal aren't keeping those kind of players around. If you can get money for a squad player, you sell them. We need to be ruthless in that sense. I think, considering we want 2 midfielders, considering we're desperate for Baleba, considering we're all in for Elliot Anderson, considering midfield is an issue, and Ruben Amorim is so reluctant to take off Bruno and Casemiro, he doesn't rate the midfield highly. Now, Maino was seen as having a big role when Bruno leaves, but there's no talk about Ugarte's future. And I do think left wing back, top midfielder, and those 2 players are on edge. Now, talking of other players in the midfield, it was said that United are planning to send Sekou Kone out on loan in the January window to give him minutes, which would be good to see. He has a few injury issues which have set him back, but United do want to go and give Sekou Kone some minutes, which is good stuff. Maino could potentially be getting minutes as well, because Napoli report announces high-grade lesion for Frank Anguissa, who's out for several months. He's now expected to miss AFCON. Napoli are having an injury crisis. They love their Man United players, McTominay, Højlund. I think Napoli could potentially go in for Maino. I think Maino was more likely to go on loan than Ugarte, but Maino was in the long-term plans. Ineos actually believes there's a top player in Maino, whereas I feel like with Ugarte, Amorim rates him. Amorim believes that Ugarte is better than what they're seeing, but I think Ineos are like, well, look, if an offer comes in for Ugarte, we'll sell him. Ineos already looking at midfield future with Maino in, but Ugarte not. And look, I know Amorim loves Dalot, but Ineos are watching the same games that we're watching, and I think Ineos will be looking at Dalot and saying, he just doesn't suit the system. Unless we go back to a back 4, which I don't think Amorim's going to do, I personally don't see a future for Dalot. So I know this wasn't a super big news video. This was more me just giving more opinions. But I think it's time for Man United to be ruthless and start looking at players. Okay, Dalot's a good squad option. Ugarte a good squad option. Great, they're good squad options. But look at Arsenal. All their squad options are good enough for their starting 11. And they're great players. They've got Gabriel and Saliba. That didn't stop them getting Mascara and Hincapie. So I just think that the best way to improve our team is to replace the squad players with starting 11 players, so the current players in the starting 11 go on the bench, and that improves our bench depth. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Bye.